Okay, if I could get everybody to gather around the table, we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, we're in class number 5, and there's a total of 6 classes. Today is usually the day that I ask, open up the class to any questions you have about pool. Everything you always want to know about pool, but we're afraid to ask. Okay? But also we're going to do a few other things too. We're going to talk a little bit about things we haven't addressed yet. So, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I got a question.
Yeah.
How do you bet on the games? Because I'm seeing all these pictures of this money spread out on the table.
Okay. You're probably seeing the Facebook pictures of the tournaments where people have won money and all that, or on the videos and all that. Okay, you pay an entry fee, and if you finish in the top 2, 3, or 4, you win money. And a lot of times people will gamble on games. In fact, I kind of have a checkered history. When I was younger, I used to love to gamble. But I don't actually do that anymore. But when I was a young pool player, I didn't even think of this. It was like an investment because I had put so much time and effort in learning how to play at a higher level that I felt like it was something that I could actually help pay my way through college and things like that. Then gambling can have a real dark side too, can it? What about people who get kind of addicted and they want to hustle other people, they want to take advantage of some poor soul that thinks they're a good pool player and they're not, that kind of thing. Does that answer your question?
All right, so the pictures we're seeing here, that's just the entry fee and you win.
Yeah. And you have winner-take-all side bets that you can make or things like that.
All right, so it's not like, you start off a game and you say, well, it's an extra $5 per ball.
No, how you place at the end determines the amount of money that you win. And that's all predetermined ahead of time. But I know a lot of you seem to be very ambitious about your pool games, so at some point you might want to play in a few tournaments. In fact, in this class next week, we're going to have a little bit of a short rack 8-ball tournament. And Chuck and Carl and I will be coming around to help you develop your strategy playing 8-ball like that. Maybe give you some advice on what shots to take and how to shoot them and things like that. And I think that'll be beneficial. All right, any other questions before I get started? That's a big one. Yeah, go ahead.
The best way to do a shot where the cue is against the cushion?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Could you please repeat the question for those of us hard of hearing?
They're both on the rail?
The cue ball.
When the cue ball, Stephen, when the cue ball's on the rail, it changes everything because it limits your options. The first thing I want to say when I have a shot like the 9-ball on the side is never ever put English on the cue ball to the left or to the right, or jack your cue up behind. Now, why do I say not to hit anything but dead center? Why do I say don't jack your cue up?
Ball hop?
Okay, that's one thing. It'll hop, but look what happens when I jack my cue up. Now, I'm going to do my normal pre-shot routine to make the 9 into the side pocket. You'll notice that I lay the cue down and I lay it on the decline of the rail. In other words, I can feel the rail touching my cue as I'm sliding back and forth. Now, if I jack up like this, like a lot of people want to do, I've lost my vision of where I'm going to hit the 9. In other words, it's just like if you had your eyes over the barrel of a gun looking down the rifle like this, compared to shooting a rifle like that. Okay, it's the difference. So the main thing is you want to make a nice smooth stroke. You don't want to jab it. It's got to be a smooth stroke when you're on the rail. In fact, when I get down on a rail shot like this, I actually press my shaft or my cue on the rail and I rub it like that. And just go through straight through.
Does it matter what the bridge is?
The bridge is real important because you want to have enough room to stroke. In other words, a lot of people will shoot a rail shot like this. There's no stroke. There's no room to really bring your cue back and forth. So the way the pros do it, and all the good players, you'll notice they spread their fingers back far enough so they can make a smooth stroke. See how I did that? And you never try to overhit rail shots. What happens when you overhit or try to hit them too hard? The cue pops up in the air and the elbow drops. You want to make sure on a rail shot that it stays true. And you'll be surprised. You think you have to hit it so hard. But watch how easy I hit this shot. Let's make the cue ball roll all the way to the end rail. And also, when you're shooting a rail shot, chalk your cue. Because remember, you're only hitting a small part of the top of the ball, so it's easy to slip off. Notice how easy I hit that ball rolled all the way to the other rail. And I maintain the smoothness of the stroke. That's a really good question because even pros and good players are always anxious about shooting off the rail because it limits your options. Because you only can hit a small part of it.
So it's almost always follow.
Well, you'll see pros jack up and do all these fancy shots, but that's because they play 8 hours a day. All right? All right, anything else before we move on?
What about two balls on the rail?
All right, what exactly do you mean?
Place two balls on the rail.
Oh, like,
No, both the cue ball and the object
oh,
ball.
that's a good question too. Now, people might think, well, that 6 ball is an easy shot, but guess what? It's not an easy shot at all if they're both stuck to the rail. Now, most people will try to shoot this shot by hitting the center of the cue ball. 90% of the time you'll miss it that way. The one way to make a shot with this object ball and the cue ball on the rail is you have to use English toward the side that the pocket's on. So what I'm going to do to make the cue ball hug the rail is I'm going to apply a little left English. So that's going to keep the cue ball glued to the rail. See how it kept fighting the rail like that? Now that's an easy shot if you use left English. But without the English, it becomes maybe a 50-50 shot, whether you can make it or not. Because the cue ball has to be hit perfectly, otherwise it'll stray from the rail. This time I'll just use the center of the ball. And you notice I barely made it, it just kind of went in inside of the box. That's a good question. Now if I was on this side, shooting from here, what kind of English would I use on this one? Can I still use my left English or the right English?
Right English, yeah.
The right English
Push it
will
in.
hug the rail. Let me kind of demonstrate it.
Is that in part left English to the object ball? That's why it went out.
It went out slightly, yeah. When you put right English on the cue ball, for example, if I'm shooting the 3 in the side, A little bit of right English will throw the three ball slightly to the left. It's always the opposite.
So you have to compensate.
Yeah,
What?
but
Your
it
main shot?
only a very little bit. Very little bit. Okay, good.
All right, I got it. All right, when you've got a rail shot like that, and you're doing English, why wouldn't you do the other side so the ball spins the key next to the ball?
All right, let me explain that. If I use the other kind of English, the left, what would happen is the cue ball wouldn't hug the rail, it would actually move to the left.
Okay.
Because if you put left English on it, it'll encourage the cue ball to curve
Got it.
slightly to the left, which will make it spray from the rail.
How about a cushion shot with an object ball on the opposite cushion in the cue ball?
Oh, like
Like
a
a bank?
bank shot.
Yeah,
Oh,
is that
that's on-
doable?
Well, you mean like, let's say if I'm banking
Right,
the three ball in here?
right.
All right, this is the hardest bank there is because you have to overcut the ball so much. Whenever the object ball's on the rail and you're banking it, it's gonna sink into the rail and shorten up. In other words, it won't spread as much, the angle. So if I was gonna shoot the three, the one thing I would be afraid of right away is double kissing too. And that's the other problem when the object ball's on the rail. Because I have to cut it quite a bit to get the cue ball out of the way so the three can bank over there. Because a lot of times if you hit it too thick, it double kisses and it doesn't bank. Let me give you an example of that. Like, if I tried to bank the three in this side pocket, it's basically impossible. Because if I hit it the way I wanted to hit it, the three ball would rebound off the rail and hit the cue ball, and we call that a double kiss. And I'll show you what that looks like. Like that would be, maybe I made it over there. All right. But if it's on the rail and I have an angle where I can get the cue ball out of the way, this would be possible, I think. Because I'm going to be hitting it far enough on the left side so it won't double kiss. But I do have to cut it a little more than you might think. Those are advanced shots that you learn after many years playing. Hey, this is fun. I like questions and answers.
Yeah, this is good. I'm
Yeah,
learning it.
yeah.
This is
So what else is
stuff
on?
I don't remember a thing to ask at times, so this is
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
This is great.
I've got a question regarding, okay, so, the way that you teach it, is to count 10, 20, 30,
Right.
and then divide by half. But when you've got the ball just stuck up here,
All right.
okay,
Show me.
well, no, give me, okay, so if you just got, okay,
Yeah.
and then you're trying to bank it there, how do you figure out, where to hit the ball? Does that make sense?
Okay, when the object ball is on the rail, it comes down to almost an art. And the reason why I say that is because there is no system to determine how to bank a shot that's stuck to the rail. Because there's too many other variables like speed and clock and all that. But if the object ball is off the rail, then you have systems that can help you.
Okay.
Yeah, like for example, if I had this bank, I could figure out exactly. This is 0, 10, 20. The 7 ball is on 24, 12. So all I have to do is hit the 7 ball into 12, which bisects the angle to bring it in here. And remember, the pocket you're banking in is always 0, 10, 20, 7 ball, 24, 12. And I know those are numbers that are a little complicated.
Pete's tried to show me the system like 5 times, and
Yeah.
I get a little bit every
This is
time.
maybe-
but that's a
maybe
complicated system.
That's maybe a little too advanced. But there's also an easier way to figure out a bank too. I'll show you that one too. Let's say I have this bank. To determine where to hit the rail over there, I find the midpoint between the 7 and the pocket you want to make it. So I lay my cue across from side pocket to side pocket. Then I swing my cue to that midpoint between the 7 and the side pocket, which is right there. Then I lift my cue up. And what's the terminology for that, Carl? Parallel shift.
Parallel shift.
That's where I hit the rail. See how I did that? Lay your cue across the table like this. Swing it to the midpoint between the 7 there. Parallel shift. So that came up with just a hair past the diamond.
So this is playing sober pool.
Yes.
Okay.
And I knew this might get a little complicated.
And then you should tell them about the most important thing on bank is your speed.
Oh,
Hit it hard,
actually,
hit it soft.
Carl hit the nail on the head. If I would have hit that easy, the ball would have been over here. If I hit it harder, it comes short. So that's why pool, much of the game of pocket billiards is artistic. It's not just points, lines, and angles. There's more to it than that. All right, where are we at? We got banks. How about combinations? Are you interested in those?
Yeah?
Combos are fun. All right. Let me just start with a basic combination. Let's say you're playing a game of 8 ball, and you've got your 2 stripes lined up like this. You know, obviously you want to shoot a combination. Now, if I imagine that the 14 is a cue ball and I want to cut the 11 in there, I would simply go like this. And that would be a fairly easy shot. Now what I want to do is translate that into where my cue ball has to contact the 14 to make the 11. So I'm actually visualizing that ghost ball right here. Now I go back to here and I pretty much replace the cue ball with that visual of the ghost ball on the 14. And take my nice smooth practice strokes. Now that's one bank. Now banks like that are not easy because you got to hit them really accurate.
That's a combination.
Yeah.
Combination.
Combination, yeah. Now what happens though if the balls are frozen together? That changes a lot. Now let's look at this one. I'll point it right at the camera. You can come a little closer, you might see better. But I'll aim it right at the center of the pocket. Now a lot of people when they play pool, they think, oh my God, they're lined up perfectly. How could I possibly miss that? Guess what? You could miss it real easy. If you hit the left side of a frozen combination, it turns the 14 from left to right and throws the other object ball to the right. If you hit the left side of the frozen balls, it turns the 14 right to left and throws the 13 to the left. So the only way to be sure to make this combination is to pretty much hit it dead center, like this. But if you have that same combination, look what happens if I hit it to the right side of the 9. If I hit to the right side of the 9, watch what the 14 does. Did you see how it screwed to the left? Let's try it the other way. What happens if I hit the left side of the 9? Well, it's still the end. Try that again. The balls have just been polished, so they aren't going to throw as much as they normally do. But we'll get them to you. There we go. So you've got to hit the correct side, but the beauty of combinations is this. What happens if the 5 and the 9 are lined up to the left of the pot, like this? So what do I do to make the 9? This is why you know, people spend so many hours practicing and all that. Now, if I hit the right side of the 5, the 9's going to throw over here. But if I hit the left side of the 5, it's going to throw the 9 to the right. So let's see if we can make it. And it's aimed to the left of the pocket. And you notice I'm not hitting those hard. The harder you hit them, the less you can change the throw. Also, if you have balls frozen together from a long distance, you can see this ball is aimed maybe about almost a third of a diamond to the left of the pocket.
Would you please use stripes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was just on the, stop this moving on the ground.
Penny, how far to the left is the 13 of the pocket? Can you stand by? Where's the 13 aim? Where is the 13 aimed right now? It's lined up to there. Okay. All right. You think it's possible to make the 13 from this distance?
I believe in you.
Okay.
I
Well,
don't
let's
think
see.
you can miss.
Well, let's see how far it'll throw.
Oh my goodness.
So you can actually figure all that out. That's why when you're playing 8-ball next Saturday, look for balls that are stuck together or different clusters around the table, because there's often combinations available.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Just another.
Oh, another strike.
Yes. Okay, so. So, come over here and just do, say, right English. And I wanna see where the 11,
Oh,
how that's,
okay.
because should transfer the spin. If you're doing it clockwise,
Yeah.
and you hit this, that should become counterclockwise.
Well, because they're frozen, this is a little different. Because if I hit this side of the 13, it turns the 13 like that, which immediately pushes the 11 to the
Okay,
right.
that's what I was gonna say.
See, it would be different if they were separate, then what you said would be true.
All right, so why don't you first
Yeah.
do it together,
All right,
and then we'll separate it.
all right. And you want me to just hit one side or the
Yeah.
other?
Now do it separated.
This is the first result.
Isn't it going opposite of what would happen if you cut it from that side?
You'll see, now I'm actually cutting the ball. So that's gonna be a lot different. Like on this shot, I could make the ball over there, but see when they're separate like this, it changes everything. See, that shot was available.
Okay.
Yeah. See, when they're separate, you just play a combination the way I calculated that first one. When they're frozen together like this, here's a good example. Look at how far the 6, the It's aimed directly into the rail. So watch how far I can throw that 6. See, it was aimed into the rail like this, but I was able to hit that side and make it look like that.
And that's because you had
No
left
English.
There was
What
no-
I did was I created the English by hitting the side of the first ball, which turned it and put English on that ball.
Okay.
Anyway, that leads to something else that I was showing Carl and you this morning. You know, in this class we've learned how to follow the cue ball. We've learned how to stun it or stop it. We've learned how to draw it. I just want you to watch. I'm going to use a striped ball because I recommend using a striped ball to learn about English. Now just watch the cue ball. The first time I'm going to just roll it straight back and straight through. But you notice I'll never go above that red line or never go below that red line. In other words, the stripe will help you determine the limits of how high you can go or how low you can go. So this one will just hit a high ball. Watch the 13 ball. Now I'm going to hit the center of the ball. Directly in the center. Still roll. But watch what happens when I hit it low. I want you to watch the backspin, how it will spin backwards to here, then skid, and then roll forward.
We got that one.
All right, whenever you hit it low or high like that, you must trot the cue. See, it's spinning backwards to here, and then it's starting to skid, and then rolls forward. But, you know, what really matters is what the cue ball is doing when it hits the object ball, because that'll determine where the cue ball goes with position. Same thing with English. You'll turn the stripe the other way now. And the same truth holds true. You never go outside that orange ring to either side. That's too far and would cause a miscue. So if I use one tip of left English, it should take me almost right to the pocket. So here's dead center, and there's one tip of left. Maybe a little too much English on that one. Let's try one more time. Just one tip of left. There's center and left. That's pretty close. Take your right to the pocket. But you can apply more English to that. I didn't use the entire stripe, did I? So this time I'm going to put 2 tips of left and see where it goes. Talk my cue. This is really important. And where do you think it'll go if I put 2 tips?
About the side.
Yeah, exactly. There's center, left. There's 2 tips. Good call, Tom.
Good guess.
Yeah. But anyway, when you're practicing English, use a striped ball like this so you can test the limits like that. It's a good way to do it. Now, why do we use English? That's the $64,000 question, right? The whole purpose of using English is to position the cue ball in a more desirable location. So it could mean a lot of things. Sometimes it'll speed up the cue ball, it'll change the cue ball's angle, it'll slow down the cue ball, it'll actually curve a little bit, possibly around a ball. There's many, many applications of English. One of the things that Well, here's a game-winning shot I'll show you. A lot of times you're playing the 8-ball and you have a situation like this. If I can find the 8-ball.
Keep at it.
You see it? I must be colorblind, thanks. Alright, this is a situation that happens a lot. Alright, and Jeannie, you can see that the 13 won't go in the pocket, right?
Right.
Alright, it's aimed into the rail over here. Now, there's a chance you can win the game with your knowledge. So how would you make this 13 ball? Because we already know if I hit the left side of the 14, it throws it even more under. What could I do here to win the game? But how am I going to do that?
Well, you could put it on the cue ball. You could put left English on the cue ball. Hit it on the.
Can you show me?
Contact the rail first.
You got it. He got it. Yeah. Now, see, that would be the same exact thing. If I hit the rail first and hit this side of the 14, guess what? It'll actually throw the 13 to this side. And you'll notice how easy I hit this because I want to get maximum throw. Oh, I should have been a little harder.
I'm impressed.
Let's try that one more time. In other words, hitting the rail will do the exact same thing. Real simple shot.
Are there other things that I suggested that works? If you put right English on the cue ball?
It won't work because they're frozen together. So the English is going to have little effect on it. But like if you have a combination, where the balls are separated like this, that English will do something. Because if I put right English on this ball, it'll put the other turn on the other ball. Like gears, yeah.
So, so when you do
How
have,
we doing?
so when you have them separated and you do the English, then the direction gets transferred in the opposite.
Exactly. Yeah. There's another use of English that I think you might find interesting. Especially in the game of 8-ball. Let's see if the 8-ball's here and the 13 is here. Let's say I want to get position on the 8 to win the game. Well, if I hit a rolling ball, the cue ball comes to about here. But this would be an example where I would need right English, so when it hits the rail, it would change the angle to come to this diamond and into the line of the next shot. So one cue tip of right English will give me an easy shot on the 8-ball. With the rail, and you always want to go into the line of the shot. You don't want to cross it. That's always, see, I don't have any room for error, but see, I could have stopped anywhere along that pathway.
And the use of the English, did you do that instead of a stun or a draw shot? Let's say that some balls were in the way that you couldn't use the stun or the draw to get there.
Here's why I wouldn't use a stun. The reason why I wouldn't use a stun on that is because if I stun it, watch what the cue ball does. It crossed the line.
Yeah.
It crossed the line. Your room for error was only this big. but wanted to come in and do real good. All right, are we ready to?
Nope, not yet. We got important business.
Oh.
It's Peter's birthday. So I brought some cupcakes over here. So you guys all ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. All right. So earlier, Peter demonstrated how important it is to chalk. So everybody gets a brand new piece of chalk that needs to go in your case. You need to go home with you. You need to bring it back every week.